The reason why the Fed is working to raise interest rates is because they're worried about inflation. Now, at this time, we have two different entities. We have the government and then we have the Fed. The Fed, although it's called the Federal Reserve Bank, is not a federal entity. It's not a government entity. It even says so on their website. And the government is not in control of our monetary supply, although the government does have the Treasury Department, but the Fed is in charge of the monetary supply. Now, at this point right now, the Fed has been saying for a while that inflation is a top priority and they want to fight inflation. Now, President Biden and the government are also saying that inflation is their top priority. That's what they want to work to bring down. This is where you have to understand what inflation is at the end of the day, because inflation is when the value of your dollar goes down. That's what inflation is. And you get inflation when you inflate the monetary supply, because inflation comes from the word inflate. What are you inflating? The monetary supply. When you add more dollars without producing more wealth, without producing more actual value, the value of each individual dollar goes down. And between 2020 and now, we have added trillions and trillions of dollars into our economic system. All this caused inflation. We inflated our monetary supply, causing the value of our dollars to go down, causing the price of things to go up. This is where now the Fed is trying to reduce inflation, meaning trying to reduce the monetary supply, trying to reduce the amount of dollars out there by pulling dollars out. The way that they're doing that is now by raising interest rates, making borrowing money more expensive, which means less dollars enter our economic circulation. They're also working to sell off their balance sheet. So now the Fed has less dollars, less assets on their balance sheet, because the Fed, although it's called the Federal Reserve Bank, doesn't keep any cash reserves. However, they have a $9 trillion balance sheet. The way that they bought these $9 trillion worth of assets was through printing $9 trillion and buying up these assets that no one else wanted to buy. So now the Fed is working to sell off these assets. That way we can reduce the size of our monetary supply and reduce the amount of inflation out there. That's what the Fed is doing. Now, at the same time, the government and President Biden say that inflation is a real problem and they want to start fighting inflation. However, you also want to pay attention to what these entities are doing relative to the words that they're saying. I'm going to talk about the Fed for just another second. Then I'm going to talk about the government, because this gets really interesting here on the government side. The Fed says that inflation is a problem. They've been saying it's a problem. And the interesting thing is they keep saying how they're going to fight inflation in the future. Up until now, even today, the Fed is still saying that they plan to raise interest rates in the future. They want to raise interest rates in their June meeting. They want to raise interest rates in the July meeting. They want to raise interest rates later in 2022. They want to raise interest rates in 2023. And then they want to work to sell off their balance sheet throughout 2022 and then in 2023. And they waited to start selling some of their balance sheet assets until June of 2022. If inflation is a real problem, like they say that it is, then why are they waiting to fight inflation? Now, the reason why they say is because they don't want to induce a recession. If they were just to jack up interest rates automatically, the stock market would crash. It could create a crash in the real estate market. It could hurt businesses. So they want to avoid that. So they're trying to create something called a soft landing. And a soft landing is where they're trying to reduce inflation slowly over time in order to fight this inflation problem. However, there's a chance that they could be wrong about this inflation again, because if this inflation is more severe than what the Fed thinks it is, and this soft landing approach doesn't work, that means they're going to have to get significantly more aggressive to fight inflation in the future. And that means that now we have a bigger bubble that we're going to have to burst, and that could cause a much bigger downturn, a much bigger crash, a much bigger pain in the economy. So that's the first thing that you want to pay attention to. While yes, they say that they're working to fight inflation, they're still hoping that it will get better with time, kind of by itself, without a major pullback by the Fed. The government, on the other hand, doesn't have the same ability to create inflation the same way the Fed does, because the government can't print money the way the Fed does. However, the government can spend money without actually having money. Remember, the government makes money through tax dollars. And if they don't have enough tax dollars to cover their expenses, what do? Well, they can raise your taxes, which would make a lot of people upset, or they can reduce some of your benefits. They can cut your Social Security, they can cut welfare, which would also make people upset. Or they can go and just borrow this money from the Fed, and then they can go and spend whatever they want, which in turn creates more inflation, which is more of a hidden, silent tax that now everybody has to pay for, but they don't really know where the root cause is. Like, even until today, everybody doesn't know where inflation is coming from. They're saying it's Russia, it's Ukraine, it's China, it's the pandemic, it's the supply chain issues. However, at the root, inflation comes from printing more money and creating more money, expanding the monetary supply. It's even in the word, inflation. You're inflating the monetary supply. So Well, the government can't print the money themselves. What they can do is they can borrow money, spend money they don't have, and then this creates inflation. Like right now we have a $30 trillion national deficit. What does that mean? The government has spent $30 trillion plus some that they don't have, that they never earned. Where did they get this money? Well, they issued these bonds, treasury bonds, and they don't have enough people willing to buy these bonds. So then they go to the Fed and they say, hey, Fed, we want to go spend trillions of dollars on whatever. We want to do it on a stimulus package. We want to spend trillions of dollars on an infrastructure package, whatever it might be. We don't have the money to do it. Can you help fund this package? The Fed can then print the trillions of dollars because remember, they're not a reserve. They don't have cash pile sitting somewhere. So the Fed prints this money, gives it to the government. Now the government has trillions of dollars to spend. So here we are today with the government, the presidential administration saying that inflation is a #1 priority, that they want to bring down inflation as soon as possible. If you enjoyed this short clip from my longer videos, here's another clip that I think you'll love. And while you're at it, if you're interested in learning more about how to start generating passive income, our team put together an amazing guide that goes over what passive income is, how to start generating passive income, and different passive income strategies. These are things that you can start doing even if you don't have a lot of money. So if you want to read this free guide on how to start generating passive income for free, all you got to do is click that button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.